You're listening to the Droematic Show podcast.
All right, welcome to the Droematic Show podcast. I'm your host, Droematic, along with my co-host, J-Dub. J-Dub, what's going on?
Chilling, man. Getting back to the new recessions right here.
I know that's right. What's going on, Ty?
Nothing much, the usual.
The usual? Now I'm gonna see what y'all gonna say this time. So what y'all do this weekend?
I didn't do anything.
You ain't
no
do
party buses.
No party bus this time?
Get ready for this trip to Florida.
Okay, what you gotta go to Florida for?
Got a little meeting, some fun.
Okay, a little bit of fun. Okay, I hear you. Ty, what'd you do this weekend?
Shopped a little bit.
Much.
Nothing much.
Candy.
Okay.
Listen to the music, that's all.
All right, cool. Well, we definitely want to hear your music special later on today and talk a little bit about that. I do want to let the crowd know we actually do have a special co-host coming in today, Lanika Benbow. We want to welcome her to the show. She's a licensed clinical social worker. She's also the author of Sasha's Story, and looks like you can pick that up at Barnes & Nobles. So first of all, Lanika, welcome to the show.
Thank you for inviting me.
Give her a little hand clap, y'all. All right. So, Lanika, tell us a little bit about you. Let's hear your background. Talk to us a little bit.
So I'm originally a New Yorker, always a New Yorker.
Okay. What part of New York?
Westchester County.
Westchester, okay.
Near the Bronx.
So how long have you been down here in North Carolina?
6 years, it'll be 7 years this year.
What was the reason for the move?
Divine intervention. This is where I felt I was led to come.
Oh, wow.
It's interesting.
Okay. I can imagine. New York and North Carolina, completely two different locations. So, all right. So let's talk about a little bit about your book, Sasha's Story. Tell me a little bit about that.
So Sasha's Story came out 2 years ago, and Sasha stands for Surviving the Secret, Healed, and Stronger. And the book is actually a depiction of my life. I'm a survivor of domestic violence.
Oh, okay.
So the book is kind of like a story form, and it takes them on a journey of a girl named Sasha and kind of what she went through the process of domestic violence and kind of some of the ins and outs. Some pieces in there that are a little bit strong.
So are we saying that this is actually somewhat of a fiction, more so in between?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Anywhere else they can actually pick that book up besides Barnes & Nobles? Do you have a website? Amazon?
They
okay.
come to Amazon, or they can go to my faithcounselingservices.com website.
Okay. The trunk of your car.
That too.
Yeah, she should know a little bit of hustling since she's from New York, right? Exactly. All right. So again, listeners, we thank you guys for tuning in once again. This episode is more so about relationships. We're going to talk a little bit with Lanika for her to give her input on things that can, help you get a better relationship, any type of struggles or things like that you're going through. Hopefully, we can say something on the show today that can be an inspiration to you and also, make you a little bit stronger to pursue and have a stronger relationship. First segment we want to talk about, and John's phone went to sleep on me.
Just gotta know how to keep it awake, baby.
All right, we go. All right. So I put on here the top 5 reasons why relationships fail and the leading cause of divorce. This episode again, more so, we just want to try to talk to a couple of the married couples. We know a lot of people are thinking about getting married, fiancés and things like that. So we'll try to brush in on a little bit for both relationships. I guess, Lanika, I see that you're actually a part of, Psychology Today?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Tell me a little bit about that and what credentials that I bring to the therapy and clinical specialist community. What is Psychology Today? I think it's pretty big on the internet.
Well, Psychology Today is actually the website where you can find clinicians in the area, therapists that are in your local area. Mm-hmm. It helps you to be able to see what therapists their specialties are, the insurances they take, different events, programs, things like that they have. So Psychology Today is actually set up so that people who are in need of therapy can find it located.
Okay, all right. But they actually have a lot of pretty good blogs that I was actually reading. That's actually how I came up with that top 5 and top 10 list. They actually had a list of their own describing some of the things that, break most couples up or just cause divorces to fail. More personal question. Have you ever been married before?
I have.
You have? Tell me a little about your marriage without getting too personal. I don't want you to get too personal, boy.
Well, it's in the book.
Oh, it's in the book. Okay, so that's another swipe at the book. Make sure you guys pick that book up today. Available at your Barnes and Nobles.
His obituary is in the book.
No.
All right, so I'll tell you what. Let's start with this. What do you think would make a successful marriage?
Being able to communicate with one another and not just talking, but having active listening and communication. Talking about things before marriage. So that premarital counseling that people get, that you go to the church and you get, a few sessions and they want to know kind of, what bank accounts you have and who's going to take care of the kids and who's going to take out the trash. That's not in depth enough.
What'd you say?
It's not in depth enough.
I didn't hear you. What'd you say?
It's not in depth enough.
So you wouldn't recommend for anybody to just go right into a relationship without premarital counseling is basically what you're saying.
Correct. It's detrimental because when you get into a relationship, if you don't have the understanding of what you are getting into, you find stuff later on down the line. Mm-hmm. So it's like, you're infatuated with each other. Sometimes it's just the looks that start off the process, or sometimes it's you're connected in a different way, things that are similar. And then later on you find out, well, I don't really like the way they do this. I don't really like the way they do that. I don't really know that you wanted 5 kids. I only wanted 2. And you don't talk about those things ahead of time.
Right.
You need to talk about those things so that you know what you're getting into, so that 3 years later, you're not coming to me saying, I'm not sure why I did this in the first place.
Before, I would say a young couple, let's go to the finances. Finances, of course, we know is a really big part of any relationship. Finances is just there. How early would they have to start saving up for marriage? Would you actually agree with them actually coming together with like a joint bank account before they get married?
That's a good question. Somebody asked me that the other day.
Yeah.
So, I would say, one, you need to have your finances in some kind of organized order before you even get into a relationship. You should not go into a relationship and your money's all jacked up. Mm-hmm. You need to have some of that stuff kind of squared away, figure out what your bills are. Before I got married, I made sure we got credit reports. Mm-hmm. I want you to pull your credit report because I need you to know what my debts are, I need to know what your debts are, and I know what things that we need to crush.
Okay, what about the young man that says, hey, I got $1 in a dream, just go with me? How y'all feel about that? Man come up to y'all, listen, babe, I got $1 in a dream, just go with me. What would you say to that?
Depends on what that dream
is. All right.
Curtis going.
I'm not, right? I don't even know if they can calculate that.
Okay. And something else, I guess, is a major thing. Religion. A lot of people put a lot of perspective as to saying that religion is kind of a big muscle to actually making sure that a relationship works. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about religion and being in a relationship? How much does that play into effect of the success of it, the detrimental part of it, or anything like that?
It can make or break a relationship. If you are on two sides of what you believe, then you're always, you're not agreeing, Christian-wise, you're unequally yoked. And so if you're not in agreement on where you're going to church, what your beliefs are, then when you raise your children, now you're struggling back and forth over, is this child Catholic, is the child Christian, is the child, Buddhist? You need to have an understanding of each other's faith. Right. And I don't like to do the whole religion thing, is how your connection is. Yeah. But that does play a big portion of if people decide to go forward.
Yeah, okay. And actually, I was doing some little bit of research on the statistics of the divorce rate for each major religion. Mm-hmm. I actually went to OECD, which is actually the source I went to. Again, OECD.org, semanticscholar.org, and also ec.euro, which is EUROPA.eu. This was basically the consensus of most of the sites I went to on the percentage of how, I guess, Christian relationships, any relationship for a religion for that matter. Christianity, 37% divorce rate. That was the highest among all religions for a religion that actually had both spouses actually confirming that they're part of a religion. Again, it was 37% for Christians, 36% for Catholic, 30% for Buddhists, 28% for Jewish, 20% for Islamic, and 1% for Hindu. Why do you feel that the Christianity, why do you feel like their rate was probably the highest in the percentage? Have you ever seen these stats before?
No.
Okay. Tell me, though, I know I kind of caught you off guard a little bit, but what do you think about that?
I think that as Christians, it depends on what your understanding of that connection is. So like for me, my ex-husband and I, both Christian.
So when you guys first met, you guys were walking the Christian faith. Okay.
And the belief system was, so you have Christianity, but it's what you believe. So that's why I would say it's your personal relationship and your connection. Right. So anybody can have a label as being a Christian. But the thought process was where, it talks about the man being the head and things like that. Depending on your belief system of what that means, it can become, like in my situation, abusive if you're not on one accord with one another. Right. So you are believing this way, the other person is believing that way, and you're not connecting. One person is thinking, okay, well, I'm the man and I should be doing this, I should be doing that. The woman is saying, okay, I understand that, but I'm doing this over here. So like when they say the submission piece, right? You need to submit to me. Well, it also says that the guy is supposed to submit to God first. So if the guy is not submitting to God and you're supposed to be submitting to him, that's what gets thrown around a lot. And so that submission piece ends up being for some people that make it or break it piece. Okay. I think as Christians, we don't always do our due diligence in furthering that. You met somebody at church, that doesn't make them a Christian.
And how did you and your husband meet? Are you currently married now? And if, again, I don't want to discredit your book or anything like that, because I want people to make sure you guys go pick up a copy of Sasha's story. But
if you get it from my webpage, then you get it autographed. So
see, and you get an autograph.
If I get it from this table, I get an autograph, right?
Right. If you put some money.
That's how you got me.
I got a square. I can take a card.
So, what do you feel comfortable talking about, like where your relationship probably went wrong, and if you could just turn back the hands of time at that point, what would you have done differently?
I wouldn't have answered the phone. That was fun.
Would you get a random call?
No, we actually went to school together, and I didn't really feel it.
Now, are we talking about college, or are we talking about... Okay. Where'd you go to college at?
I did my undergrad at SUNY Rockport. I did my 2 masters, one from Fordham University, and then the following one at Nyack Seminary School. Nice. So those are where I got those degrees from. But I met him in undergrad and didn't really have any interest.
Did he approach you more so?
Yeah.
Or he just saw you walking, you guys had a class together, or?
Saw me walking.
Just saw you walking.
And had interest. And
what was that? Do you remember the line he first kicked to you? What did he say? You remember?
No. I can't forget some stuff, but yeah. No. I do remember, though, there was one time, because I found out that we lived kind of in the same area. We were close in where we lived prior to coming to school. Right. And we took a bus ride together back to school. And that's where we kind of started talking, conversing, and stuff like that. But then I never really kind of gave it a second thought after we got back to school. I didn't actually connect with him until I met him in the mall, or I saw him in the mall, and he gave me his number, and I still didn't call him for
You still didn't call him?
No, 6-7 months after. So the guy was showing me some stuff, and I was ignoring it.
So I guess his pursuit level, did he call you every other day, or
I didn't give him my number. So it was me needing to call him.
So you had to call him. So he was patient that entire time for you. And when you actually decide to make a move or respond to, him talking to you, that's when everything just kicked in. He just waited for you for what were we talking about here? 3, 4, 5 months?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow, he was actually really in pursuit.
I don't know if he was waiting. I mean, he may have been doing some other stuff in between there, but I knew that he had interest in me from undergrad, and people talking in the fact that he had interest in me, but I wasn't really interested at that moment.
All right, and let's go to the dating phase. How long did you guys date before he actually popped the question?
It's about a year or 2.
About a year, okay. During that time frame, for some of our female audiences that are actually listening, could you tell them some signs that they may need to kind of look out for and maybe not sweep under the rug before they actually decide to, take that leap?
So when they talk about how they treat their mom or how a female treats her dad, you want to look at that stuff. You want to look at the relationship that they have with the females in their lives, because that helps you to understand how they actually will interact with you. He had a lot of connections and disconnects all at the same time.
Yeah.
You want to look at those isolation moments. So yes, I want to spend so much time with you, and don't go out with your girlfriends or to do things or whatever.
Okay, and let me stop you for a second. Go back to isolation. Explain to the viewers what you mean by isolation period.
So having those moments where you feel like it's just the two of you, and it's kind of that facade of I just want you all to myself, and I want you to I want to love on you or whatever, and I want you to just kind of be romanced by me and not necessarily go places or do things with other people.
Now, I guess most people would consider that being possessive. What do you think about Tata?
It doesn't look like it during that time.
Ta, what you think about that?
I mean, I've been through the domestic violence.
You've been through it also?
Yeah, so you do like an isolation period. Not even just with them wanting all your time. It's like you don't want to be around people because they get tired of hearing that same story. Like you're going through this, and they want you to leave. They want better for you.
This is a thing. A lot of people that hear stories about domestic violence, they think, okay, why don't you just leave? And they don't realize it's just sometimes not that simple for some women.
Oh, it's not that simple.
It's not. And can you guys kind of, touch on that? Why isn't it just that easy to walk away from domestic violence?
Because domestic violence is not a physical thing. Domestic violence starts out as subtle little thoughts that are put there. So it's like, oh, I want you to, just kind of be around me. Oh, I want you to make sure you come back at this time because I want to do things with you. It's gradual things that shift your mind, that make you feel like things are okay.
Right.
And it doesn't turn physical until you're kind of locked in there. And then you have those thoughts where, okay, maybe I should leave. And you want to,
right,
or you want to do something different. And all of a sudden the tables turn and it becomes physical. So when people think about domestic violence, they think about the battery part. It takes a long time to get to that part because it is a mind shifting.
So the physical part, or what you're talking about, is a shifting of the mind. It's so a mental thing.
Yeah, it starts out as verbal and emotional abuse first. So then you're kind of locked into that. Well, if you leave, or if the person says, well, I'll leave because, I don't seem like you're spending that much time with me. You like to be with all your friends. And depending on what your mindset is at that moment in time, then you're like, well, I want you to be in my life. I want you to be a part. And then you begin to start shifting how you respond to other people, and you spend more time with that person individually. That is what starts the process. And so in the book, it actually goes through the first part of my journey where I didn't realize I was in a domestic violence relationship because I didn't have the bruises and things like that. So I've been through it twice.
So the relationship that we're talking about now, that was your first experience with domestic violence, right? With your husband.
My first experience was actually as a teenager.
Oh, as a teenager.
And I didn't realize that it was actually domestic violence because there was only one physical incident. But as I look back at it over time, it was the emotional stuff.
Gotcha.
The verbal stuff. The I'm going to kill myself if you leave me moments. Those things. And so I never realized that that's what that was until I got older, started going to school and stuff like that, learning more about things, and realized that I actually was in a domestic violence relationship when I was a teenager.
Well, being that young, wouldn't there have been a more open communication between parents?
Not really, when you're not supposed to be dating at that age.
What age are we talking about here?
13.
Oh, my daughter's getting whipped. Dating at 13. This is gonna be physical right across the cheek.
And I'm sorry, Tata. I think Tata want to add something to that. What do you want to say, Ta?
No. Everything she's saying is like.
Everything. You agree with everything she said?
Only thing is like with me, my fear was if I leave or if I choose to leave, would I be risking my life? Like, they don't want you to walk away from them. It's kind of like a coward move. I'd rather see you dead than with somebody else.
Yeah.
So that was one of my fears of leaving and why I chose to keep going back, because I wanted to live. I was scared.
And we have kids. Do you ladies talk to your kids about certain things?
Oh, yes.
And I pray that my son, whoever he end up with, their parents pray that they meet somebody, good character, because I'm not raising my son, even though he witnessed it. I sit him down and I talk to him. And I even explain to him why I stayed, I don't want him feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Do you think you'll be able to say anything at this point for him not to visualize that as he starts getting older? Like, you think you'll be able to change his mindset over the next couple of years? Because he's what now, 12 or?
He'll be 12 in December.
Yeah.
As he get older, he don't talk about it as much. He might bring up little things that he remember, and I'm like, oh, that's old now.
Yeah, because one thing you don't want him, every man that you start dating, and you at some point you'll probably bring around him. You don't want him looking like, okay, this is the next guy that's gonna beat my mom or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So
the children sometimes come very protective over you, though.
Very.
And they will watch and they will check out and they will say, okay, what's your intentions? So they end up becoming, because even through that process, when I was with my ex-husband, my daughter is the one that actually came to me during those moments after I was hit or things like that, and I'm in the corner and I'm crying.
yeah.
And she was the one that came and consoled me. So growing up, I had to tell her that I'm the one that takes care of you. You don't have to take care of me.
So how old was your daughter at the first experience that she saw and she actually consoled you? How old was she at the time?
She was about maybe 2.
Wow, she actually had the instinct to say, Mom, hope everything's all right. Wow. Wow, she's very intuitive. Very. All right, let's keep this moving. Anything else you guys want to say before we go on to the next segment?
No.
Nothing at all?
I'm just ready for my book, because...
Wait, hold on. Okay, wait. All right, so let's stop right there. She said she ready for a book?
I almost asked her for my money. I gave her the look.
The girl want her coins.
I'm just trying
You're gonna give me my money. I got a square.
I'm trying to pay this $5.99 fast. How much is it on the back of that book?
12.
Oh, good God.
$12.99.
You take pesos?
So I guess how much time do they actually need to spend into premarital therapy before they say, you know what, we're ready to do this? Is there a set amount of time or?
I actually think that people during the dating phase, that should be something that they do. I have couples that come in and they say, you know what, before we even think about getting married, there's some stuff that we're going through right now, and we really want to talk about what we're going through because it's not making sense to us, and we feel like we want things to move in a different direction, but we're not so sure we should. And so I think you need that time to talk. So a basic premarital, I would say at least 6 months before you actually pop the question. So that way you are talking about those things. I've had couples come in and they didn't know that their spouse had abuse issues, that they had, trauma. And a lot of times you hide that when you go into another relationship. So those different, reactions to things that you didn't understand why they were talking to you in that kind of way, they were moving in this kind of way, it's because of things that they've gone through. So you want to be able to talk to them. So I would say at least 6 months, but during the dating phase before you actually pop the question.
Some people would say dating someone for 4 years is entirely too long. What do y'all think about that? 4 years.
It depends.
4 years of dating. 4 years of dating.
I agree with the counseling. Like that kind of pushes the process a little faster because then the communication is open. Like 4 years, they still trying to figure things out 9 times out of 10, and they confused them.
So 4 years isn't long at all. I know it depends on the situation and the people,
but they have a different take on what dating is. So
what's your take?
It depends on what you consider dating to be, because we kind of lump it all together, and technically when you are dating, it should be you have kind of options.
Well, actually, you know what? I'm sorry. I used the wrong term. A committed relationship.
Okay. For that, I would say about a year or two.
A year or two.
Because you learn as much as you can within that first year. And somewhere in between there should be a decision on what you think your future is going to look like.
So at the end of a 24-month time period, if you still have like some uncertainties in your mind frame, do you think that at that point, no, I shouldn't just go ahead and move forward with marriage at 24 months? We're talking about 24 months. You're in a committed relationship, but after that 24-month time period, you still have doubts and questions about the relationships. Is that just a natural human effect, or you feel like that's something like, you know, that, hey, you know, it's still not time for you to get married yet?
It all depends. It really all depends on the person. Because 2 years is really not a long time. Mm-hmm. But it's a long time, because 7 years, by law, y'all already married. So, I mean, after 4 years, if y'all haven't came to the conclusion that I could see myself with this person, y'all just wasting time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for me, if you go into 2 years, it's kind of hard to call it final, because then you feel like you've wasted 2 years. And you feel like you've put all this energy in this one person. There's something that's going to turn around. Mm-hmm. You know, eventually you'll click, and then you'll move on forward. You'll move forward in life together. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it's hard. Have I been in a relationship where it didn't work out? Yeah, of course. But I knew in 2 minutes. Check that credit report.
That too, right?
Credit score is a little bit too low for mine.
But sometimes that's also why people wait and don't get married right away, because they're trying to correct some of those things before moving forward. So that's why it's a little, so I would say maybe 2 to 3 years, because if at that, say you got together and then after the first year you say, okay, I can kind of see myself going, but let's see if we can figure this stuff out. Mm-hmm. And you get to a point after the 24 months, okay, we're almost at that point, but you've already discussed that that's something you want to do going forward, that it's not an if. Yeah. Then I would say, okay, it could go to the 3rd year, but it needs to have some solidification to it.
Cool, fair enough. I actually agree. With that. Now, this is another heavy one right here for the causes of divorce. Dishonesty.
Oh, wait. Before you go into that, I said I was going to pay for this book. Let me go ahead and run her my money. Hold on.
Seriously?
What was it? $12?
Give us 24.
Was it? Wait, what?
Well, how many did she bring? Like,
they're in the other.
Okay. All right.
I have them. Don't worry about it, because I got to sign them for you too.
All right. So yeah, I got to get one of those also. So.
Take ones. Don't judge where these ones came from either.
What would you
Let me see, what type of smell do they have on?
You gotta need to give me a card on that one. If it got sweat on it, I don't know if I can take it.
No.
But I'm sure Lanika can multitask. She can take your money while answering this question. So what do you think about dishonesty, Lanika?
If you feel the need to be dishonest, yeah. Because if you feel the need to be dishonest, then that means that hidden.
What if they had they feel like they had a good reason to hide what they were actually hiding from the individual? Let's say, for instance, they found out that they actually had another child, like maybe 1 year into the marriage, 12 years down the road, 12 years in the past, they actually had a baby, and they actually didn't know about it. And then that particular parent lets them know that, say, hey, you know what, we actually share a baby together, and they're 1 year into their brand new marriage, and he's looking like, okay, well, I didn't know anything about this. What do I do? I mean, do I tell my wife that I actually have
Because why don't you? If you're supposed to be honest with the other person, if you're hiding that, then that causes the other person to say, okay, well, what else are you hiding? Mm-hmm. If you didn't tell me about this, and this is something that's important, when they get that phone call from the baby mama that says, he got this and I need to get my money, and now that's conflict between the two of them, and now it's conflict between you and that person, because you never told me about this. Even though you just found out yourself, that's something you need to have a discussion about. And I see your face all kinds of screwed up.
What if, like, in your mind as a man, you really don't think that's your kid?
So then
should you do your homework first?
Yeah.
And then tell her?
No, because you need to have that conversation of, let me let you know, just in case it comes out later on, that this is what the scenario is. Because if they feel that you're lying about what you're doing, then they're now questioning, what else have you been doing that you're lying? And is this the only kid that you have? And you're not telling me stuff. And wait a minute, you came in at such and such time and you told me you were at your homeboy's house. Like, where are you at? And it creates that untruth
Right.
in the middle of your relationship. So you want to be as open and honest as possible, because when you start lying about stuff, then you got to find a lie for the lie and another lie for that lie, and then you just destroying stuff.
What do you think about that, Tom?
I'm just waiting for that Bible to come flying.
Yeah, I had that situation happen to me when I had been married for almost 14 years.
Ooh.
And then the girl that I had dealings with called me when the kid's supposed to be 16 years old.
So then you find that good movie that depicts that, and you watch it and you say, okay, so by the way, you remember what we just saw in that movie? So this is what had happened.
I manned up though. I manned up, sat her down, told her. And it wasn't a great conversation at first, of course. But I promise you, that wasn't my kid. Because I went and saw little buddy. He looked anything like me. There's no need of DNA now. I bought the swabs for no reason.
Oh, wow.
I was gonna be sitting in the morning looking at you like,
Little buddy wasn't mine.
And I know this sounds like a trick question, but at any point, is there anything that a person would actually use dishonesty to actually save the marriage?
Use dishonesty to save the marriage.
Yep.
to some degree.
Give me an example, John.
I don't have one. I actually don't have one. I was just trying to help her out.
I'm actually trying to think of a good one that.
There's really no reason to be dishonest, because that underlying dishonesty, it just breeds. It opens the door for other things to occur. So if not being truthful with the person that you're with, it's not a healthy way to have your relationship. There's always some kind of underlying issue at that point.
Right.
So I don't think that there's any real thing.
Now, going back to something you said earlier about looking for signs and things like that. I know most of you probably, I'm sure I did it, but when you actually meet somebody you really care about, you want to introduce them to your parents. The role of your parents and how they actually look at that potential person. What do you guys think? Like, do their opinions really matter? Your parents?
If I had a...
So wait, so Ty, let me, because I'm pretty sure most women would do this. You 12, 13, 14 years old, and your dad telling you that, hey, you know what, I don't want you dating this type of guy, I don't want you dating that type of guy. Did you ever rebel and, try to date that particular person anyway?
Yeah.
You ever done that?
I actually cut all ties to my father for my marriage, and he was absolutely right.
He was right? How long were you married, if you don't mind me asking, Ty? And I know we were really close friends. Some things I just don't ask over time, but...
I was married for 10 years. I was with him for 12. And from the first time my father saw him, he was like, I don't think you should go that way, because you're here and he's here, and and I'm like, well, I don't see that. Like, he got potential, and
So you felt like you could see potential in the guy?
Yeah, and I'm like, well, maybe my father is just too, because he don't like anybody.
So at that time, you felt like your dad was kind of somewhat the enemy. Like, you're not supporting me, Dad, and you really ain't trying to see me happy. Like, you don't see what I see in this guy, and I see what you're saying.
But he was absolutely right, and even like during the domestic. He would get mad and he'd be wanting to do certain things, and I was like, no, because I put myself in this predicament after I had so many warning signs. Like, when you ignore that, you only set yourself up for destruction. And I got just what
I mean, like, what is it that's blinding most women, or, God for that matter? Like, what's blinding you for you not to see what other people are telling you about that particular person? It's just, like, it can't be love. Love can't be blind. It can't be. It can't be that.
Like, that person may change. Like, it's a possibility they could change.
And you touched on that in your book.
Sometimes it's also within yourself, what you're actually seeking. So, like, for me, I'm a helper, and over the journey of relationships and things like that, I started to understand me a little bit more. And so, as a helper, I see the need, hence being a social worker, of, okay, kind of like I can fix, or it's not going to affect me as much as it would affect somebody else. I can do something with this. And so that becomes destructive, and people may say things, but you're like, yeah, but you don't understand. And then when you throw the religion or the spirituality piece in it too, we can do all things through Christ who strengthens us. And you throw scriptures at everything, and it's like, you forget kind of the logic and using wisdom in these situations.
Right.
In your book, you talk about, there's a part in there where you talk about marriage doesn't make it better. Then a few sentences down.
Smart guy, man.
But you had a question in there, was kind of almost like you asked yourself, is what did I do to deserve this?
At one point, I got really angry at God because I felt like I did everything I knew how to do. I tithed, I was a good wife. I did everything that I knew how to do and what I've been taught to do. And to be in not only that type of situation once, but then to have it happen again after I told my ex about that situation. And it's like, what am I going through?
Right.
Why is this happening to me, and why can't I make it stop?
That's the Bible scripture, like you go from strength to strength. Like, I think you go through certain things to find your strength.
Yeah.
Like your weakest moments, you really find out how strong you are. So.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you want to add to that, Lanika?
Quick question. Not question, but to piggyback on what you had asked in regards to the parents and why we don't kind of listen to the parents in regards to what that individual is. A lot of times, especially if you're young, you kind of figure your parents don't really know anything.
Right.
But when you get older and you start looking, sometimes parents don't really teach what they need to teach ahead of time. So like what I talk a lot about with especially the young girls is value, how you value yourself. Now my parents love me, they dote over me and things like that, and I see that from them. It's expected. Right. You begin to try to find that same thing in other people, and when you see little things in those people, then it's like, okay, and then you gravitate towards that because it looks like what you came from. But if a parent doesn't sit down and say, you are valued, this is your value, and teach them that this is what you need. So like with my daughter, after everything that has occurred, I talk to her, you are valued, you are worthy. This is what you should expect of your mate. This is what you should expect as a such and such. And I talk to her so that she values herself. And there's a lot of us that don't necessarily have the level of value that we should have. We know that we have value.
Agreed.
But we don't exercise that because what we came from kind of just gave it to us. And so it's kind of like having a chair. You sit in it and it's valuable just because you sit in it, but you don't know what store that came from, and it can have a whole level of value that you're not actually tapping into.
Agreed. A person, whether it be a female or a guy, they're saying that they're still trying to find themselves. Would you recommend someone that's still feeling that they haven't found themselves yet to actually go into a marriage?
No. Because then you're going to look for yourself in that other person. That whole thing about this person completes me is total crap.
You feel like that's crap?
Yeah, you need to be somewhat whole before you go into a marriage, a relationship, anything, even a friendship. You need to have some kind of wholeness to you before you go into these things, because broken people break each other. And so if you got two broken pieces, how are you gluing that back together? Yeah. So you need to be to some level of wholeness before you go into a relationship, so that you balance each other out. You're not completing each other, but you're balancing each other out.
Okay. Now, for the people that are listening right now that, they did divorce, they done every single thing they could to try to save their marriage, and, for whatever reason, it actually failed. What would you tell them right now that would just kind of heal them and help them get over like a really tough divorce? What would you say to them right now?
That sometimes what God joins together is not what we actually seek. And some things that we thought that God joined together is not what he joined together. That we joined those things together. So it's not over for you. That you have the ability to have a wonderful relationship or marriage or, going forward. But you have to find who you are first.
Right.
Still a chance, Aaron.
Still a chance. Indeed. Listen, man, this is a really good topic. Again, thank you guys, you listeners, for calling in. Or I'm sorry, not calling in, but just listening, and whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. We're talking about relationships, how we can make them better, how we can save marriages and things like that. Having a really good conversation. So right now, of course, we're going to go into our next segment here. It's Rhea's War of the Facts. This is where she gives a music report, anything going on in the pop culture. She talks about that. So, Tata, tell us what's going on in the music industry this week.
Alrighty, so y'all already know that Pusha T dropped his album. Now him and Drake got some kind of beef going on, and everybody's kind of upset that Drake hasn't responded to Pusha's last response was like spilling all the tea. So now they really call him Pusha T. Where Drake has supposedly a son by a porn star named Sophie.
It is. I saw him.
Does it look like Drake?
Yeah.
I haven't really seen
Picked him up.
pictures.
How old is he? How is it the suspected?
It's a small baby. I don't think he over 2 or anything like that. I haven't really dug into it as much as I should, because I'm kind of upset too that Drake isn't responding.
I mean, what do you think he's waiting on? You think he's just scared, or is he just trying to get as much dirt on Pusha as Pusha got on him?
No, because
I think it has something to do with his dad's friend. When they introduced him into the music business, he told him it wasn't right for him to respond to it. The best way to address it is just to move on with your career.
Right, because Drake is not a gangster per se.
Well, no, I mean, you don't have to be a gangster to start battle rapping. That's been at the beginning of time with hip hop. People battle, they keep it under wraps, don't take it to violence or anything like that. So, if he considers himself an MC, he should have the decency to respond. That's just what rap is.
But how would he look coming back with some more gossip? Like, they're grown men.
No, he doesn't have to come back with gossip. If he's a lyricist, he want to come back with just lyricists, just straight get him. He don't have to dig deep.
Pusha took it to the table. He's spilling all kind of tea and beans and rice.
Didn't Drake go the same way though?
When?
He got.
What about Meek Mill? Like, what do you do with that Meek Mill beef? You want that kind of serious?
Meek didn't respond. But now this everybody's expecting Drake. And he isn't responding,
So, I mean, is there a timetable in battle rapping? Like,
he definitely maxed out his deadline. If he respond now, it's just for his purpose.
So, pretty much, Drake pretty much took a nail. He finally took his first loss in a rap battle.
Yeah.
Now, is there rap battles in the gospel world, like at church?
You asking me?
Yeah, is there gospel battles?
Not that I'm aware of.
So you never picked a side?
We battle with Jesus. He's on our side.
I was gonna say what do you call there, like a pulpit cipher? Got a choir director spitting balls or something.
You like the way the chicken was seasoned last week after church, so we had an issue. They started talking about chicken.
What else you got going on, Ty?
Alright, so now you got Nicki getting ready to drop her album in August, which is entitled Queen. She dropped some decent pictures on Instagram. I can't show y'all because I have no signal.
Yeah, I'll do hand puppets. What was it?
Kanye dropped his album, which was pretty decent. It was okay.
How many tracks Kanye got on his album?
7.
It's only 7 tracks.
7.
Do you give a reason why?
It's a God's number. I do know that, so I know you can affiliate with that 7.
Completion.
Yes.
So is he saying that he's not going to come out with another album? This is it for him?
No, he have an album out with Kid Cudi.
So
it's just his favorite number.
Right.
Going back to the Nicki's the name of her album, Queen. Like, what significance does that play for that particular name? She's saying like she's just the queen of rap.
I'm not sure if it's just that. It could be with Nicki. It's anything. Like anything's possible with Nicki. But overall, like she, stated that men should treat their women like queens. So I think it's more of an inspirational or motivational type album for the women, which would be why she entitled it Queen, not just so much because she is the queen.
Is that for the what did she call her? Like the Barbie dolls?
Right. Well, she said she was getting ready to end Barbie, so.
Oh, she's gonna end that.
Yeah.
That was a pretty strong brand. I mean, she made some ones with that.
And she's bigger than that now. She's actually Queen Movement. So.
Okay, she's getting on her grown woman thing, right?
You got Jay-Z and Beyonce, of course.
Yeah, what's going on with that? Like, they talking about pictures and this and that. What's going on in the Beehive?
Well, apparently Beyonce took some kind of new graphic pictures with her and Jay, laid up in the bed or you know, like just lounging basically, but they didn't.
So what's the big deal about their married couple?
Right. It's just, you know, they're gonna get backlash. People don't like to see people be great, but.
Well, I mean, that's just being at home.
Right.
I'm laying around. I'm naked.
You take pictures of that thing?
I would like a refund on my book.
It's already signed.
Oh.
You take the space boots off when you...
Go ahead with the space boots. What is with the space boots?
Cut it out and get them. Okay, so, yeah, they took some pictures. They were nice pictures for their On the Run 2 book, and you know they got their tour set up now.
So when does that take place?
The On the Run tour has already started.
Are they just touring in the States, or was it like a worldwide tour?
Worldwide, I believe.
Yeah, I would assume it's worldwide with those two.
Yeah.
So you got the
pretty steep too.
You got the press tickets or the press passes?
Oh yeah, just because you're in, you get a press pass, it actually doesn't mean or guarantee that you're actually getting in there. Believe it or not, it's not like a universal press pass, which that's what I thought it was. Like, no, it's not. I'm like, okay.
I'm just trying to get backstage, man.
Don't blame me, man. I will try to get back there too. So, the NBA Finals, they actually wrapped up, man. The Cavs and the Warriors. You guys basketball fans?
Man.
Oh, Todd, please tell me you weren't going for Golden State.
I wasn't, but I was because he can't beat the team by himself. Like,
no, he can't. Where do y'all think y'all think he leaving Cleveland? Is this it for him?
he needs to.
Where do you think he's going, John? You been keeping up with it?
I've been keeping up with it.
But
I mean, I don't know where you can go.
To the Knicks, I believe.
No, he ain't going to the Knicks. I would think it would probably be Los Angeles Lakers. More so for him to build his brand. I think he has like 2 multi-million-dollar homes in Brentwood, California, which is like a really nice area. I think he probably would go there to build his brand. He also has Philadelphia as well. That's a pretty cool spot for him, but I think they were saying because of the style of living there. But I mean, if you got that type of money, like, it shouldn't really matter. Like, you go to Philadelphia and you can probably, live a really good life, the type of money he's making. And then I think the third option is him actually going back to Miami. So
they might as well bring him to Brooklyn.
Bring him to Brooklyn?
Yeah, we need some kind of...
I don't think you're going to Brooklyn.
I was going to say the Wizards. I was going to say Washington.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what LeBron do in this in the off season. So a lot of people are going to be watching that. What else you got going on, Ty? Anything else you want to talk about?
That's pretty much it for the most part.
All right, well, cool. We appreciate you for being the hip hop head of the 3 of us. So that was pretty cool. So again, I want to thank the listeners and the YouTube subscribers for tuning in on another episode of the Droematic Show podcast. I want to thank Lanika Benbow for coming by. She did a really outstanding job here. And guys, please remember to pick up her book, Sasha's Story, at your local Barnes & Nobles. Also, I think there was a website as well.
Services.com.
Yep. Any closing words for you, Lanika?
One, I'm thankful that you guys invited me to be here. I had an awesome time. And 2, just remember, in your relationships, look within yourself first before you step forward.
Awesome. That's good stuff. That's good stuff. Good stuff, Lanika. You guys, if you guys like Lanika's co-hosting with us, there's more to come. She's actually going to do a full 3-part series with us. So you guys make sure you catch episode 4. We'll be talking about some more interesting stuff. So please subscribe to that channel. And Lanika will be back with the next episode. So signing out. Good show, guys. Sayonara.
Indeed.
Droematic.
Jojo.
You've just listened to the Droematic Show podcast with your host, Droematic.